Aideation, הפודקאסט ליזמים וליזמות מבית TPY Capital.
Hello, and thank you for joining another episode of Aideation, TPY Capital's podcast for entrepreneurs in the world of generative AI. We're doing this one in English because what we're going to be talking about is the interface between generative AI and quantum. You heard that right. Two of the largest revolutions of our generation. Some would claim the two largest revolutions of our generation. And we've been asked by quite a few folks who are not native to Hebrew to actually do a podcast about these two topics that we're very excited about as a fund, and hence the English. And today I am absolutely super excited to have, first of all, as a co-host, my partner, Dekel Persi, who's a managing partner at TPY Capital and an early investor in quantum well before it became all the rage. And two fantastic guests that are here with us. And I don't think of any other two I could imagine, speaking of two revolutionaries, to speak about the interface of quantum and AI. So we've got Professor Dorit Aharonov, really one of the world's leading figures in quantum computing research, researcher, lecturer in Hebrew U in Jerusalem, and founder of a portfolio company in quantum software called QEDMA.
Great to be here.
Thank you, Dorit. And Haim Israel, global strategist, managing director of thematic research at Bank of America, a very small enterprise, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. Haim, pleasure having you here.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
So, before diving in about the interface between generative AI and quantum, it's important to note that something big is happening in quantum. And public quantum companies have performed remarkably well. We're showing a little graph here with the stock prices of D-Wave up 33x over the course of 12 months. Rigetti, similar trend. And IonQ and quantum computing, all within the last year or so. Just a week ago from the recording of this episode, towards the end of 2025, we're now in Trump announcing that the U.S. government is going to become shareholder in quantum computing's first $1 billion acquisition or in the field, Oxford Ionics acquired by IonQ. And just a few weeks ago, Google announcing major breakthrough in the path for quantum supremacy through a new algorithm. And the question to you, Dorit, is this real? Is this real now? Is this different from anything that you've seen over the course of many years in the field of quantum?
Well, it's absolutely remarkable what's going on in the past year. There's been amazing breakthroughs. And the reason I'm so excited and so many people are so excited is because basically for the past 30 years, there has been an open question of whether quantum computation will actually ever be realized. And
that's a doubt that was in your mind?
Since I was, in my PhD, I actually proved that in principle, we can overcome, that was 30 years ago, we can in principle overcome the main obstacle against realization of quantum computation, which is noise, which is errors in the systems. But in the quantum devices, which if you have such noise, it ruins the entire ability of the quantum computer to output anything that's meaningful. And for the past 30 years, it was a big question whether this theoretical result called quantum fault tolerance, with many, many follow-ups and improvements, can it actually be realized, and can we actually realize quantum computers in real life, in the physical world? And even 5 years ago, it was still a big open question. That was one of the main reasons why we founded QEDMA, in order to combat this main obstacle. In the past,
of existence of errors.
Of existence of noise and errors, and basically things that make the algorithm work not as it should be doing. And in the past year, there has been remarkable results by Quantinuum and Google and many, many hardware platforms that, in fact, mainly Quantinuum and Google, that actually showed that the main idea of how to combat errors, which is quantum error correction, can be realized and actually does reduce the amount of errors, which means that the shadow, the cloud that was sort of hanging above the field of whether this is or is not possible, that is removed.
Got it. And jumping to you, Haim, in no way will I ask you to comment on public equity trends, in terms of solicitation or buying recommendation. But is that how to think about it, how it's linked to what we're seeing in the public market fascination with quantum?
Definitely. First of all, I completely agree with Dorit. The joke with quantum for the last 30 years, as you said, is 30 years away. For 30 years now, not anymore. And there's a realization in the market that something big is happening. We are not data scientists. We don't understand. We're not physicists. We don't understand technology, but we do understand that something big is happening over here. But there's one more element that actually feeds into the public market when we're talking about capital markets. 2022, December 2022, we all woke up to a completely new world. The ChatGPT moment. ChatGPT was released. No one understood at the time. No one understood the revolution. So we spent December by completely ignoring the news. January, overhang after Christmas breaks. February, why the hell all those companies are starting to move up so aggressively. And then somewhere a couple of months ago, people start to really talk and understand something is changing. The notion here is there's something big happening in the background. We are seeing the news. We are seeing the breakthroughs. We understand something big is going on. We see more and more money, sovereign money and public money and private money, which is heading into the space. And investors are fearing to face another ChatGPT moment, so are happy to be there in advance. Understand that it might take 1, 2, 3, 4 years. We don't know. It's definitely not 30 years away. That's the notion in the market. And we understand that something big is happening. No one wants to be left behind this time.
So I'm definitely not going to be the cynic about this. But Dorit, it was back in 2019 that Google announced, I think it was their Sycamore processor, and huge headlines of quantum supremacy. And I think that at the time, kind of did not prove itself. I'm being maybe generous with my observation. So is that different this time?
Well, I think it's a bit harsh to say that it did not prove itself, because as always in quantum, there's a lot of hype. So when somebody calls this quantum advantage, it is quantum advantage on the theoretical side, but it's completely useless quantum advantage. So it didn't prove itself from practical point of view, but it did prove itself from the point of view that it was an amazing experiment that showed that something can be done by quantum devices.
On the hardware side.
On the hardware side.
Yeah.
So, however, this is something that, so as I said, hype is going to go with us all the way along. But now what we're seeing is that we are approaching quantum advantage that is practical, meaning quantum advantage in computing various computations related to drug design, related to material design and more, which we actually are approaching towards quantum advantage on these problems.
Got it. So before we dive into the core topic, which is marrying yet another huge technology into it, a question to you, Haim. I know you're on pretty much every stage globally. You talk to CEOs, to CTOs of Fortune 5,000 companies. If I had to say a couple of dozens every quarter, that would be a good assumption.
At least, yeah.
At least. Is that a boardroom management, executive management team topic of conversation for real? Or what are you identifying, whether it's in financial services, pharma, wherever, you have to maybe bring it up just to shut it down and say, this is just not the time. What does it mean for them to do something in quantum?
So it's changed a lot in the last, I probably would say 6 months. So 6 months ago, and we were, in terms of the capital market, we were the first one to really flag and pound the table when the shares start to go up and we start to see all those changes. Most investors and CEOs, CDOs, boardrooms that we talked to were, keep me in the loop. Just let me know what's going on. Let's do some kind of a teaching, understand technology, but that was roughly about it. We need to understand this one thing, and we'll speak about AI. But boardrooms all over Wall Street right now are really struggling with AI. It requires it goes against the DNA of Wall Street. Massive investments, increasing capex, reducing returns to something that in 2, 3, 4 years might or might not generate a return. I'm a big believer it will, but that's we'll speak about that.
You're specifically talking about the capex invested by AI companies, by hyperscalers.
Not necessarily. Every
Right.
company right now is going through the stage of implementing models in different divisions and understanding how AI can help them in the long run. And that requires a lot of investment. That's requiring stripping of all kind of silos and information that I need to start sharing. It goes against the DNA of companies. So boardrooms are right now struggling with this. It's very similar, if I want to make very, very similar to what we've seen in the 10, 20 years ago with the telco companies that need to invest ridiculous amount of money in all this infrastructure and all those 4G, 3G, 5G, knowing that may or may not generate a return. But if I'm not going to do that, I might disappear. So boardrooms are there. Now you top them with quantum, which is quite interesting. Okay, guys, no, we are talking about AI, but no, the next revolution is really around the corner, which is going to be 10 times bigger. And that's finding itself very difficult. So most companies that I talk to definitely want to be informed. It's increased quite a lot recently, and we're seeing more and more, not just teachings, but starting to real implications. The other thing which is quite interesting about that is that there's one specific area, which I know we're going to speak about, which actually grabbed the attention of boardrooms, and that's the cyber risk. And that's the privacy risk and the decryption risk.
Right.
Because, of course, and Dorit is much better than me, that if, assuming we'll get to this quantum supremacy moment and we'll get to those algorithms that actually can confront all the current encryption methods today, that's a game changer for the entire market. So you talk to a CEO, you talk to a company and say, no, explain, teach me, whatever, and then you go into the encryption, and then you see the real aha moment coming.
Right.
Say, okay, well, I need to worry about that today and not in 5 years.
But does it stay in the realm of quantum readiness, or does it go beyond?
It goes in terms of the investments. It goes to my cyber division. What do I need to do? Do I need to start talking about what are the right algorithms, or where are the soft points in my organization right now? Because remember, this cyber theme is of course not new. We are confronting it now with AI, with deepfake, with new algorithms that are coming up almost every day. And now telling them, you know what, we're spending a lot of money on cyber. Guess what? There may be a scenario that in a couple of years' time, whatever you experience today is completely meaningless. So we need to reinvent everything. All the current encryptions could be theoretically, at least, purely theoretically, could be completely meaningless.
And I can tell you, Haim, we did a little back-of-the-envelope analysis as a fund. And if you look at the number of quantum-related jobs in Fortune 500 over the course of 2025, they're more than doubled, just when you look at that. So there is an investment, whether it's theoretical, whether it's for optics, it's yet to be seen. But the number of people who are recruited to large companies to deal with quantum, whether as a defensive move or as a, call it, offensive move to actually generate revenues and reduce costs, that's already happening.
There's a big difference if you're telling a company, if you implement technology X or technology Y, you will increase your revenue by 10, 15, 20%.
Right.
To tell a company, if you're not investing in technology, you will vaporize overnight.
Right.
There's a big difference.
Right. So it's the fear and the greed,
Yes.
and they're both playing, but you're saying fear is definitely the one that's
Yes.
driving at this point of time.
Fear is a great motivator.
Absolutely. That's how I managed to bring you here.
I know.
Dekel, you want to take us into the abyss of generative AI and quantum?
Yeah, so maybe those are really two very big questions, but let's try to digest what each one brings to the table and why the combination, some would say the convergence, is so fascinating and interesting.
The power couple. We are seeing...
I love this.
The power couple, yes. This is...
Yeah.
Think about the two most radical technologies which feeding
It's
each
a marriage,
other.
not convergence.
It's a marriage. It's much more than that. Two most radical technologies that are converting right now. The first stage that we've seen is, and I'm sure Dorit probably you know more about that, is one of the key is that we've started to identify why we see so many breakthroughs recently in quantum. And a lot of it has to do with AI, with the algorithms of AI, with the amount of calculations that we can do, with what AI can bring us, which actually feeds back to quantum. And then we say, okay, let's assume we are getting to this quantum advantage or even quantum supremacy moment, which what it really means, it means that I can analyze data in ways that I could not done in the past, or classical computer cannot even confront, and that feeds back to the number one problem of AI. The size, the sheer amounts of data, how much data I need to use, the quality of the data, what this data how can I use the algorithms in the right way, which is really what all the hyperscalers and all the whoever owns AI and all the big, the Mag 7, this is the number one problem. How do I develop the models in a way that is efficient enough? And this way, quantum really feeds into that. So when we are talking about how those two things, we are saying the holy grail of AI is AGI, or in later stage ASI, artificial superintelligence, which is still a big problem, and there's a lot of discussions around it. Could we achieve it? Could we not achieve it? Again, without being a data scientist, trying to understand that what are the complexity around it. Think about a world that in maybe a couple of years will have quantum computing that can work and digest data in a very, very different way, completely different methodologies. And we can get to this AGI instantly. Now, if the thing, and that's for me the breakthrough moment, that is the big bang moment of AI, as I call it. Because think about, today we have very, very smart people. I'm sure a couple are working in your organization that are developing the next generation of AI. Now, I try to think about AGI as a smart AI agent which have higher IQ than the average human being. Like if the average human being is 100 IQ, we are talking about models which have like 200, 300, 400 IQ. So think about it. Today we have many, many smart, thousands of tens of thousands, very smart people developing the next generation of AI. How about in 2 years' time, 3 years' time, we'll have millions of AI agents with 5, 6, 700 IQ generating the next generation, developing the next generation of AI. So the sky is the limit. For me, this is the big bang. And quantum is such an important milestone in the way of that, which can lead us to places that we've never, ever thought in the past. And like everything around quantum, if we are talking up until now, and this is where the market really struggles, because the market, capital markets, were taught and were brought up to think in linear terms. We're getting from point A to point B in a straight line. AI changed the equation that we're moving exponentially. Quantum, we are not moving, we're leapfrogging. I don't even know how to call it. So this is where those two technologies, when you see the combination of them, this is where everything can get really, really interesting.
So for investors and entrepreneurs, what is the indicator to follow? Is that the stability and error reduction qubit count, or convergence, or
Sure.
projects, announcements of joint hybrid?
So there are a couple of points here. So we are still looking, and again, I think this is where the market gets wrong, and I would love to hear how you're looking at it from a more scientific perspective. But from a capital market perspective, we are still waiting for this ChatGPT moment. So first of all, there is an understanding, finally, something that have not been a couple of months ago, that quantum computing is not your normal computer. I will not have a quantum computing on my desk. I will not play FIFA with it. I will not do my Excel or send my emails with it. This is not this machine. It's something very, very different. So there's an understanding. So people are not waiting to see this is on their desks. Then when we start, I think that what the market is expecting is to see the AI models, not the outcomes of quantum, but the AI models really getting to this stage that takes it to a completely different level that can start doing everything from us. But we are all asking, probably again, us in the capital market, asking ourselves the wrong question. When we're going to get to this ChatGPT moment of quantum computing? When we wake up one day, Google, Microsoft, someone will come up, Continuum will come with an announcement. Here it is. We have it. Here's the machine. No problem. I don't think there is a chance you will never know. There's a big chance you will never know.
So hold this for a second, because I want to really deep dive into what you're saying.
Sure.
And I'm showing a slide created by McKinsey & Company, which I thought was just interesting in terms of the frameworking of it. And they're talking about two different dimensions of generative AI and quantum. One is how quantum could solve issues in AI, all the way from algorithm efficiency to memory to computer power, and then on the other way, how AI could speed up the development of hardware and software in quantum, for example, in quantum hardware and in applications and hybrid integrations. Just as an example, Dorit, is it one of the two? Is it both? What do you see as a practitioner and a technologist in quantum? Where do you see AI coming into the stuff that you do and see?
Everywhere.
Okay.
You can see it everywhere from all directions. For example, just for a start, I talked about the problem of noise. You can use AI, and Siddiqui from UC Berkeley, for example, uses AI in order to learn the actual way the quantum system is noisy and therefore be able to combat it much better. But the other way around is, I think, what Haim was talking about, and it's much, much more exciting because this issue of noise sort of is, okay, we'll deal with that and that's it. But what can we do with these quantum computers? That's the most exciting thing. And the thing is that quantum computers, it might seem as if they're very, very different from AI and that it's a marriage between very different things. But in fact, they're somewhat related. Like in AI, there are these neural networks which you control the parameters and they learn and they sort of optimize the parameters to work as best as possible. And in quantum computers also, you have these quantum gates, the elementary units that actually perform the computation, and they depend on parameters, and you can actually modify and learn those parameters to make the quantum computer work optimally.
I'm almost embarrassed to ask you to explain this to me, of course, not to the audience, which I'm sure you know. But walk us just for a second. Like, what do you mean by the quantum gates, and why is that different from what you're seeing in a traditional computer?
Yeah. So in a traditional computer, what you have is bits. And you have elementary steps that actually change these bits, like and not, very, very little functions. And they
zeros and ones.
Zeros and ones, and then you take, for example, 0, 0, and you make it 0, 1. And these steps sort of become a computation once you accumulate them. And in quantum computation, what you have...
we would say deterministic computation.
Deterministic, you can even add probability to it.
Because the probability is where the AI...
Probability is where the AI gets in, but also, probability is there. The revolution of inserting probability into classical computation happened tens of years ago. But with AI, of course, it's one of the most. It's essential. It's the bread and butter. But now
and
with
native to quantum, it's part of the probabilistic computation. I'm asking, is it that probabilistic? Common denominator, a common factor that makes the two?
Well, it's important, but in quantum you have an additional ingredient, which is negative probabilities, and these negative probabilities basically allow things that are mind-boggling, like different answers that have nothing to do with each other canceling each other or adding up, or so you have basically all the possibilities in the computation talking and working together. And so back to the quantum gates basically are those elementary units that sort of manipulate these negative probabilities and make them reach the desired outcomes.
Which effectively means that instead of having a sequential 0, 1, you could have any outcome between 0 and 1. That's the nature of the exponential growth in computational power of quantum, right?
Right. You can have both 0 and 1 with different weights.
Right.
And then what that means from the point of view of AI, going back to what Haim was talking about. So the thing is that if you start with a quantum computer and you make it learn its parameters so that it becomes better and better, it can reach probability distributions that are things that are intractable for classical computers. So you get to sample from probability distributions that are just inaccessible to classical computers. And this has potential implications. For example, I was just looking at a paper in Nature Technology from the beginning of this year about using AI in order so a pipeline of an algorithm to actually come up with better configurations for KRAS inhibitors of cancer. Where the goal of the quantum computer is basically to sample from a distribution of molecule configurations which are better suited. The distribution is better suited to the sort of specified requirements on the molecules that we're looking for. So the algorithm so far was run on 16 qubits, which is extremely very small
Right.
thing. But this is just an example of if you get to larger and larger numbers of quantum bits, hundreds even or thousands in a few years, we will get to quantum advantage, and we will get to distributions. We will be able to learn distributions that are intractable classically, and the sky's the limit for in terms of applications to material design, to drug design, like I said, and basically these distributions, if you make them correspond to physical systems and chemical systems, then quantum computers seem to have the most power.
Right.
And then talking about the hype, going back to, I was listening to what you were saying, and Haim, and kind of, you're talking about really, really amazing possible implications. And I was saying, as a scientist, maybe some of it is maybe a little bit exaggerating, because quantum computers, as far as we know right now, I mean, the things that we actually know is that it will have amazing implications in learning physical systems, designing new physical chemical systems, and so on and so forth. In terms of optimization, in terms of solving problems that you were talking about, this is still, people are working on it. We firmly believe that there will be amazing implications also there, but we are still further behind on that.
I think what Haim was saying is not only people are working on it, but also AI agents are going to be smarter than people.
That's true. But for that, we will need to have the AI, the quantum AI to start working on it. We need quantum to advance to that stage.
So maybe just a follow-up question on this. Help us understand, and I know it's odd that in a chapter like this, I'm asking for different scenarios, because quantum, we could have all scenarios, right, at the same time. But in a world where you had the quantum development that you're seeing today, end of 2025, and imagine a world where there's just nothing in generative AI. Like, there's been no progress in generative AI. Would quantum be able to achieve real-life applications in absence? I'm just trying to understand how much of development of quantum is predicated on advances in generative AI.
I think not much at this point. I think we will see the marriage, the power couple interacting in a few years much, much, much more. At this point, I believe that AI is taking its place in making the life of scientists much easier and so on. But I don't think it's really critical. But I think in a few years it will completely change.
Because what would happen in a few years?
Because first of all, there will be quantum AI, meaning we will actually be able to learn and study distributions that are related to the quantum world using quantum computers, and this will be transformative. We will be able to do things like drug design, material design, and all these things related to physical systems, things that are just simply intractable classically. And there will be also computations performed by AI for training, computation performed by quantum computation for training AI systems and for generating models that are basically assisted by computations of, for example, of algebraic problems that are sort of bread and butter in AI, and this is something that quantum can enhance exponentially in certain cases.
We should be just, I think, one for our audience, we just need to be clear. We keep saying that quantum computing is this machine that gives you the advantage versus classical computer, because it actually approaches different problems that classical computers can't do. And I think this is the point that we need probably to make a little bit more clear. What are those problems that classical computers just can't approach today? And actually, I'm talking about wherever we're talking about complicated calculations. So I'll give you a couple of very basic examples that we researched over the years. Take a deck of cards, 52 cards. How many different combination of those 52 cards you can create? The number is 8 times 10 in the power of 63. 8 vegetillion different calculations. No classical computers can do that. So maybe quantum can or can't. We'll get there. We can decide. But today, classical computers just can't do it. So all computers will take more years than the universe ever existed to try to calculate in so many resources. It's just not going to make sense. So of course, no one really cares about calculating a deck of cards, but think about molecules. Think about drug development, as you said. Think about that a penicillin molecule is comprised of 41 atoms. Just to calculate all the different vectors and different combinations of 41, it's three-dimensional. No classical computers can do that today. So this is what we're aiming for. We may or may not get there. But this is the idea that once you can get more than 2 dimensions in a much more complicated system with so much uncertainty, this is where you can't use classical anymore.
I think at this point, the may not get there is put aside because of the recent developments experimentally. I think that
on the software or the hardware or both?
Both. I mean, in terms of hardware, we have gotten to a point where I think you have to be really, unrealistic in order to not believe that there will be quantum computers large scales, whether it's I'm guessing more, 4, 5, 6 years, but that's roughly, depending on how large the quantum computer you're talking about is. But already IBM predicts 2,000 qubits in 2029. That's their roadmap.
Yes.
2,000 qubits is something way, way, way beyond what classical can do.
PSI Quantum said 1 million by 2027 recently. So it's the timeline is getting shorter and shorter all the time.
1 million physical qubits?
No, they didn't have just noises, so we're not really sure about that.
So a question to both of you. You said there's no ChatGPT moment in quantum. Like it's not going to be here's what's happened. And I'm just curious because so much of what we're talking about when we're talking about real life application, it always comes back to pharma and material science, a lot around chemistry and drug discovery. Is there a world where in 5 years' time there is a ChatGPT moment for quantum in the sense that we wake up and we realize that several dozen huge pharma-related clinical issues in science are just solved? We can actually figure out. I'm asking ourselves, because that would be, the beautiful view of how technology improved the life of humanity. Of course, there's a dark side to it as well, but that would be the amazing view. Could there be a moment saying, well, actually, we can figure out which compound is going to solve this kind of cancer. This is how Alzheimer's is going to be solved. Is there a potential for a moment like this?
I believe yet there is some chance that it will be sort of a moment in time. I think a more likely scenario is that it's going to be gradual, that we will see, we're climbing
pieces
up the
puzzle,
quantum advantage, and we will see quantum advantage already next year, this year, for some small problem, maybe designing one molecule, and then maybe later more and more molecules. But I think there is a chance that it will be, a splash. Starting after this gradual increase in the number, we will see something really big happening.
Haim, is there a Cambrian moment of drug discovery related to quantum and AI?
Definitely is. There is a ChatGPT moment. There definitely is. What I've said is that we might be in a position that we will not know about it because we keep focusing on drug discovery and neural disease and materials and all this stuff. And we're waiting to come up with this new innovative drug or anything that can help us. And this is going to be this ChatGPT moment. But remember one other thing, that a lot of it is being developed on the sovereign level, on the government level. A lot of it is done in other places. So I usually people talk about US, China. I'm talking about the OpenAI block versus the DeepSeek block. So a lot of it is actually being developed on the DeepSeek block. And over there, you're not really sure what's going to happen. So let me give you a scenario. We got to this moment. China government got to this moment.
Would they share that?
Will they share that?
Yeah.
If I would be in the Chinese government, the first thing that I would do is redesign the semiconductor. Who said that? No, first of all, they're fully reliant on the US right now. Taiwan, US, those are the ones that are leading it. Who said that semi is the most efficient way to run classical computer? Maybe this is the way that technology have developed, but once we're going to have quantum, maybe, theoretically, we can redesign everything.
Yeah.
We can redesign everything. Maybe I'll do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily tell you that I got there. We spoke about the encryption risk. We spoke about so many things. So there is a moment. There's definitely a moment. The question I keep asking myself, will we know about it?
Okay, great. So just to make sure I capture this, you're saying there's a moment, but given that so much of the progress is government-sponsored today and government-related and geopolitics play such a role, who knows? Maybe we're inside the moment and no one is telling us.
Think about one thing that is very important. This is the first technology ever in history that, theoretically speaking, can bring everything back to square one. Technology today is being controlled by the US, or leader is the United States. Semi, everything else, AI is led by the US. China is trying to catch up. For the first time, we will have the technology that can reset everything, that can plane the level field and bring everybody back to square one. If such a radical technology might not tell you that I've got there, but
Right.
use it first.
Right. So I want to approach two specific angles. We're talking a lot about it, Dekel. One, around power. Again, that's a very easy segue from geopolitics. AI models, both on the training side and more as a share of the compute in inference as well, are consuming huge amounts of power, in fact, constraining the grid. We know the story, climate change, everything else. Is there, are there applications that you see where because of quantum, we're going to be able to see a reduction in the power inputs required by AI models?
So first of all, yes, we've seen a couple of companies that actually know the problem of power right now is associated with data centers. So our research suggests that the amount of data centers that we need in the world, not say we're going to actually invest, is roughly 50% more than what we have today. Roughly another 3,000 big AWS Azure data centers that we need to build, which if we'll build all of them, we will require more land than Singapore, more energy than Japan, just for the data center. However, quantum is a very different system. Quantum requires, if a supercomputer today, which does not give you the solution of quantum, is taking more energy than a small town, quantum takes like 5 refrigerators. And some estimate that I've seen actually say even lower
How
than that.
large
What?
are the refrigerators?
Small ones, the ones
Yeah.
you just put beverage in. So if you do that and think about that, you integrate that with data centers. Or you can do so many different calculations. Today you need ridiculous amount of GPUs and warehouses of computational power in order to develop those models. That now I can start doing it on quantum, which requires less and less energy, much more efficient calculation in the future.
Dorit, as an entrepreneur, are you being approached about this?
No. At this point, I think people are not afraid enough of this issue. But of course, it's very relevant. But I have to say that my point of view on this is that I think human beings are just, I mean, if we save, of course, quantum computers will be able to save us power. Once they become useful, they just calculate much, much faster. But then human beings are such that, okay, if we have more power, let's just spend it on other things.
Right.
On more things, more and more.
You're saying maybe the cost of unit is going to go down, but then you're just going to have more units.
Obviously, right? We know
You
ourselves.
asked about the marriage of quantum and AI. One of the developments that we've seen, theoretically been talked about quite a lot, or talk about energy, is that quantum can finally make the breakthrough that we need in superconducting, which is so much more efficient materials in terms of energy transformation. And we had this company that we met. I'm not going to name names. You didn't invent it. So that says that a new materials of superconducting, one cable, 17 centimeters diameter, can actually transmit the entire energy of London. Of course, you need to distribute it, and that's another story.
Right.
But in terms of how efficient this material is, which, like quantum, like fusion, which is another thing that quantum is really helping us right now, or we'll get there with quantum, we are at the edge of redesigning stuff that we did not. We're still thinking about the old networks, the copper networks, which are not what we're going to have once we're going to have quantum, hopefully.
And another area that we keep looking at and hearing about, how you could potentially use quantum to generate data sets. I think you kind of alluded to it, Haim, at the beginning, but generating data, because one of the scarcities in generative AI is not just compute, it's the absence of, there's only one internet kind of story. Are you seeing that, Dorit?
So, of course, this is going to be the next stage when this power couple starts actually working.
Dating. They're already dating.
Yeah. They're dating, yeah. When they get closer, I don't know.
Not
engaged.
exclusively, but they're dating.
Yes.
Yeah.
The fusion.
When they get engaged, I guess this is going to be the first step. But this is not. There's a big issue about data and quantum, which is data loading, which is something that is very, people are assuming that data can be compressed exponentially in quantum, which is true. But then the loading of the data on the quantum computer is still going to take the huge amount of effort. So these are still issues that are under debate.
The non-sexy aspects that are the difference between theory and practicality,
exactly.
right? So, at least for my end, last question, and they can then wrap us up. But we're talking about real transformational technologies. We talk about generative AI in this podcast, and quantum, of course, it's a huge deal. Any guidelines for an entrepreneur trying to figure out what they're going to do when you've got these two huge lights kind of looming ahead and maybe shining, but also creating so much, disruption? What does it mean for someone who says, like, I actually want to do something that takes advantage of both of these fields? Like, is that realistic as a new startup in, let's say, end of 2025, beginning of 2026?
And I would add to that, not only new entrepreneurs, existing companies. People talk about quantum readiness in terms of encryption. Is there quantum readiness in terms of AI? Existing AI startups or companies that need to be ready for when those models could run on a quantum computer.
I think it's the same timeline as quantum algorithms in general. We are seeing quantum algorithms. We're approaching quantum advantage. This recent paper that you mentioned at the beginning, Guy, of Google, just a few weeks ago, they announced verifiable quantum advantage on problems that are related to testing large physical systems and multipartite entanglement. These are the complicated connections in between quantum particles. So this is a really new step in terms of actual verifiability. So once we go beyond the area where classical computers can compute, you get to a regime where you get an answer from the quantum computer, 3.5. How do you know it's correct? You can ask another quantum computer to tell you whether the answer is still 3.5. But maybe that computer has the same problem, the same error. So how do you know it's correct? This is a big, big issue. What they claim is they made a step towards that place where you can verify. Because if you don't have a classical computer that can compute it, you cannot verify. So this is something that is really a big issue, and we're going towards that. But I think that after verifiable quantum advantage on less than practical problems, not very practical, which is what the experiment that I described. It's really exciting what they're doing, but it's not yet very practical.
And IBM is doing huge amount of work, of course.
Exactly, on their utility paper, and there are many problems that are getting there, but not yet completely practical. We will see practical problems, and the moment we will see that, this will have applications to AI, because you can actually do the same things in the context of AI.
So a founding team is sitting in a room, knowing that all of these technologies are coming to age. Any guidelines for what would make them not stand frozen still because they're afraid that everything they're going to do might be somehow jeopardized, cannibalized, eaten up by, the marriage of the two? Is there any guideline for them?
I would say be on top of it. Be on top of it, as Dorit said, it's happening so fast. So don't assume it doesn't matter if you're doing software, hardware, whatever you're doing right now, that, no, this is years away. I don't need to worry about it. I have a presentation next week. Who cares? Not now. This is happening so much faster. As I said, we might, yes or no, we will know about this ChatGPT moment. AI is already changing everything right now. Doesn't matter what you do today, if you're in real estate, commerce, industrial, technology, AI is impacting your business. Be on top of the technology, because that's a game over for so many different industries that can happen literally overnight. So my advice is just going to be, wherever you do, be aware of that, be on top of the revolution.
And if you were CEO of a Fortune 5,000 company, what would be the recommendation to you? At least 4,900 are listening to us right now. So let us know what's the guideline for them.
The guideline for investing or the guideline
No,
for
the guideline
how,
for the CEOs, like
I
all of
would
this is
say
happening.
avoid hype in the sense of if you ask whatever the idea that you have, does it promise to do everything, or is it actually focused on something? Because if it's not focused, if it's promising to sort of try to solve the entire problem of optimization, you're probably following some fluffy things.
Like entrepreneurs, I would be on top of it. I would hire the right advisors. I would start talking to the big companies that are on top of the technology and developing the technology. I would start thinking about how that in the future can change my organization, what do I need to do, and I will be very, very focused about the encryption side of things, because that can happen sooner rather than later. You actually don't need big machines to do that. You don't need those 1 million qubits to do that. So I think it was PSI or Anki, I can't remember. One of them said, you need 1 million qubits to run the Shor's algorithm, noisy qubits.
Right.
You don't need them to have zero noise. So be on top of it.
Yeah, I have one more advice. Collect people from a very interdisciplinary set of skills, because this area simply has to do with mathematics, with physics, with computer science, with software engineering, of course with AI.
Good luck. Good luck
yeah.
with that recommendation. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the podcast, the Aideation podcast by TPY for entrepreneurs in the world of generative AI and quantum today. Thank you, Dorit. Thank you, Haim. Thank you to my co-host, Dekel. Thank you for Google for Startups for the great location, for our editor, Noah Ben Moshe. I'm Yamen, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was fun.